I'm Cynthia Daniels. This is Dana Britton. We're co-directors of the program. Some of you know us from, having worked with you individually. But I just wanted to walk through for everyone's sake, the process that we've gone through so far. Each individual applicant was asked to write a narrative to submit to the university asking for an equity adjustment. For the most part, people chose a series of comparators. Other faculty members, they felt they were paid inequitably in comparison to their own salary. They submitted that to their dean and an office called University Compensation Services, UCS. The deans, for the most part, in this first round, and we're talking only at this point about the applicants who submitted their applications in the very first semester up until the end of January 2020. And so you submitted your applications to the dean and UCS. The deans, for the most part, supported the requests of their faculty members. And then UCS began, first of all, UCS refused to evaluate cases where the dean did not support the request of the applicant. That in and of itself is a terrible problem. But UCS did take those cases where the dean affirmed the request. And then UCS subjected that application to a two-stage evaluation. I don't even think it rises to that level. First, UCS decided, well, actually, they reported to us that in 75% of the cases, the deans simply changed their minds about the comparators they were going to affirm for the applicant. In some cases, UCS threw out all the comparators the applicant had listed. The comparators the dean had maybe added or modified, and UCS simply, well, they said the deans, after further consideration, created a new list of comparators. And so one of the ways applications got changed is that UCS then took this new list of comparators, took the average salary for that list of comparators, and then looked at the difference between the applicant's salary and the average of the comparators. And that's what they call the pay gap. So in some cases, it showed that the applicant was actually making less than the average comparators, and that would be the first round of assessment. Secondly, UCS developed this regression analysis. We know from your letters and from our conversations that this regression analysis included 3 factors, at least, etc. I mean, what they've told us is 4 factors: your title, your rank, and your discipline or department. And they tried to, through this regression analysis, control for how differences in those 3 items, or maybe another, how differences in those items could explain the pay gap. That would be explainable. And then what portion of that difference between your salary and the comparator's salary was unexplainable. And that number, this unexplainable gap, would be the amount they would recommend for an adjustment. And Dana's going to run you through some of the numbers, but I just wanted to outline that part of it. Let me just tell you 2 examples about the comparator changes. We have a woman in one department in Camden, right, who had all of her New Brunswick comparators thrown out, and Camden comparators or a Newark comparator put back in. Lo and behold, this was a Hispanic woman, and geez, they knocked out 2 of her comparators who were white males, and they substituted 2 comparators who were Hispanic, and she was Hispanic. Like, hello. In another case, they took a Camden applicant and they threw out New Brunswick comparators and put comparators in who were at lower rank. They took the higher, she was an associate. So they threw out the associate professors in New Brunswick and they substituted assistant professors in New Brunswick, as if her value and worth, right, could be compared to someone a whole rank below her. And again, these are women in the sciences, right? So it's pretty easy to measure worth. So that's what I'll say about that process. And I'll turn it over to Dana now. She's going to share her screen
Yep.
and walk you through some of the numbers or some of the analysis we've been able to do since we've got those first 103 cases. And then a subset of those are about 50 cases where we individually helped folks put their application in. So
Yep. So we have two analyses, one of the entire group of UCS letters and one of the complete files. A complete file from our perspective is we had your application, we had your dean's letter, and we have your UCS letter. Because we have all three of those pieces, we can estimate how much you asked for. And then that allows us to estimate the impact of comparator changes. We couldn't do that without estimating an ask. And in some cases, we're not going to be right, but we did try our best to estimate an ask. So there's a lot happening here in most of the rest of these. I'm not going to give you tables all the way through, but I wanted you to see that there were 103 people in the first tranche of applicants. The university spent $1.2 million, and I'm sure you'll be hearing about that. That doesn't include back pay, by the way. The median award on the entire university was about $9,000. 87% of people got something. And if you exclude those with zeros, then you can sort of see how that mattered. I'm going to make some points about intercampus differences, but here you can see from that 103, this is the median increase by campus. So the median increase at New Brunswick was about 16,000, 13,000 at the law school, 14 at Newark. Now you can see that the numbers get pretty small because most of the 43 of the 103 cases came from Camden. Yeah. Right, so there are only 19 at the law school, 29 at New Brunswick, and 9 at Newark.
And I hope you can read the little print at the bottom. So it's Camden, Newark, New Brunswick, and law school.
And I'll make these slides available if people want to see them. So, or if there are data geeks out there like I am. All right, so that's the 103. So then we started looking at the 49 to sort of see what people asked for and what they got. This is what I would call the sort of ask-get analysis. So this is the percentage raise that people ask, the median percentage raise that people ask for. So on the campus as a whole, university as a whole, it was 25%, and the median amount they got was 10%. But you can start to see those bars diverging pretty rapidly as you move down. The bottom bar is Camden. The average ask or the median ask at Camden was 18%. The median get at Camden was 6%. So, and you can see that at New Brunswick, the median ask was about 25% and the median get was about 12%. So you can see that they're varying across campuses, and you'll continue to see that theme. We were able to estimate the effects of comparator switching because, again, we could estimate those at the amount of the ask. So I made it red if people lost, and green if people got money, and black if there was no impact of the comparator change. And you can see that here on the campus, on the university, for the university as a whole, among these 49 for whom we have complete files, comparator changes cost people 43% of the time. 20% of people gained. So there were some people who gained from comparator changes. 35% of people had no effect at all. But again, if you want to look at the big red bar, it's over here on the left. Right. 71% of people at Camden lost from comparator changes. We can compare that to New Brunswick, for example, where only 15% of people lost due to comparator changes versus 31% who won versus 54% who had no effect. Many people have asked about the regression. I would draw your attention to the fact that though it says in the letter that they controlled for discipline, they did not control for discipline. They controlled for department. And if you will look at your letter, you will see that the department that if you're in English at Camden, your department, according to UCR, is FASC Camden. See, for FASC English, right?
Yeah.
If you're in English at New Brunswick, then your department name is SAS English. So those are two different departments. Though they claim that they took campus out of the regression equation, it's in through the back door because of the way they're identifying departments. So again, so you can then see here how the regression mattered per person. Again, 71% of people at Camden lost versus 51% of people on the whole campus. 22% of people gained, and 27% of people had no effect. So the last thing I'll show you is a little bit busy, but I wanted you to get a sense of the aggregate, like what did they save in the aggregate from these practices? We can tell you that in the first group of 103, they saved about $500,000. from the regression. We can't tell you about comparator changes because we don't have complete data for everybody, but they saved about $500,000. Here you can see this is the total award request approved by the dean, and this is the total approved by UCS. You can see that overall for the university as a whole and these 49 campuses, they saved about $290,000 by changing comparators, and they saved about $200,000 from the regression analysis just in this group. Interestingly enough, I hate to harp on it, but at Camden, really the effect was the greatest, right? The pool, it knocked down the total pool by about 80%, these two things together. At New Brunswick, oddly, these two things actually added to the pool of awards. So it appears to us that they could not have pointed more directly at Camden if they had tried, and they undoubtedly did try. So,
and part of this is because if, you know, the New Brunswick folks who were applying tended to pick other New Brunswick faculty to compare themselves to.
that's right.
The Camden folks tended to pick people in New Brunswick because that's where the largest disparity is, right? And of course, the applicants from Camden were more likely to be faculty of color than the applicants in New Brunswick. So there are a couple where we could talk a lot more.
There are a lot of ways
about the ways that sort of the disparity is built into the equation. So.
All right, so that's all the numbers from the powerful poetry to the not poetry of numbers. But there you go. And there's not a number about these cases that I probably cannot tell you. So I'm happy to answer questions.
So now, again, this is just the first 103 cases. These are the cases that were approved by deans in the first semester. We're not talking about people who are completely left out because their deans gave them a negative response, or they never received a response from the dean. UCS just left them off the table. And they really just, that's horrible. But we'll talk about that.
So there you go. That's our